I'm going to start by taking you back about 300 years. About 300 years ago, there were no such things as offices. There were no factories. If you worked, you probably worked near home. You probably worked on the land, or if you manufactured, you did it in your house. It's the cottage industries. Work was judged by what you produced. It wasn't judged by how many hours you were actually at work. Then in 1729, the East India Company opened the first ever office in Leadenhall Street in London. The first factory wasn't opened until 1769. We then had the Industrial Revolution. There were more offices, more factories, and it became a way of working that we all commuted to work. And that's the way we still work today. But have you asked yourself recently, is that a productive way of working? Does it suit businesses? Does it suit society? I'm going to argue that it doesn't. This is what happens every morning around the world. We all fight with the trains. The roads are congested. We're dipping out pollution all over the place. And then we get to the office. And what happens at the office? Bob wants you to tell you how to do his job again, because he can't be bothered to find it out for himself. And you're sat there, so it's very easy. Mary wants to tell you all about what she and Peter got up to at the party at the weekend. And Beryl wants to foist yet more baked goods on you. But the office is actually a terrible place to work. It's full of distractions. It is really tough. I find it difficult to understand how anyone can work from an office. So most of us have our best ideas either in the bath or walking in the woods. You're glad I didn't put a picture of the bath, I think, up there. As a choice. It's because we're away from all those distractions and we're stress-free. Now, just as an industrial revolution happened, there's a revolution happening now that's just starting, but it's beginning to get traction. We're calling it the Agile Revolution. The Agile Revolution means that instead of thinking about where you work, how you work, who you work for, you break down all those barriers and you just focus on what you deliver. Now, it started as a way of project managing in the IT industry, but it's now spread a lot further than that. And everyone's starting to think about it, but very few people understand it, which is why we wrote the book, The Agile Revolution. If you think about it, most of us are working in an agile way now. You're sending emails in the evening. Some of you may be even working now as I'm speaking. Since the smartphone came about, we've all been working in an agile way. It's become the norm, but we're not all doing it at work. So let me persuade you as to why it's wrong for society, first of all. If you think about what's happening in society at the moment, let's start by transport. As I said, the government is spending billions and billions of pounds every year on improving the trains, the road networks, generally on infrastructure, billions of pounds. And yet the roads are still crowded, the trains are still congested, we still have to fight the strikes. And then you look at the cost of it. The average cost of a commute is £168 a month. That equates to around about 21% of a mortgage payment. The average time someone commutes a day is 1 hour and 38 minutes. In some parts of the country, it's gone up to 4 hours a day out of your working day. And of course, it is exhausting. You then look at pollution. Pollution in this country, there's an annual limit of pollution set by the World Health Organization. In this year, we reached that annual limit in London by the 6th of January. That's before most of us even got back from Christmas holiday. It was 12th night. That's when the pollution limit was reached. You then look at housing costs. There is a huge disparity in housing costs across the UK. This is caused by the fact people need to be near their jobs. They either need to be near their jobs or they have to commute. And most of us manage a reluctant balance of both. But housing costs are much more expensive if you're near your job or if there's a lot of jobs nearby. It means that in Sunderland, you can buy a one-bedroom flat for £14,500. I suspect you can't get a garage in Woking for £14,500. And in the centre of London, it's gone up to £1 million. This means we've got a whole generation of people who the idea of a front door, their own front door, is an unrealistic dream. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. You then look at society and communities. We've all seen problems with mental health, etc. All the studies show that people benefit by knowing the people around them, their community, and being part of a community. And yet almost no one knows their next door neighbour at all. It's because we live and work in different places. A lot of towns are now dormitory towns. You sleep there and you go to work somewhere else. You don't know anyone at all. And then on to the final point. As I said, I've whipped over these quite quickly, obviously, because they're all huge issues by themselves. The next point is women, childcare, elder care. Women are now in the workforce. That means there is a little bit of a hole at home. Who looks after the children? Who looks after older people? With Agile working, it's not so much of an issue because you're not so far from home. Childcare is a cost that most of us can't afford. It is a ridiculous cost. Trying to put your older folk into homes is a ridiculous cost. But actually, if you're nearby, if there is an accident, you're on hand. We then look at people with disabilities. We spoke a bit about it. There's a lot of people at home who are highly skilled, but they can't work, and they're economically inactive simply because they cannot travel, which is a crazy situation. So they're on benefits, etc. So there's a lot of very good reasons why society, it doesn't work the way we're working currently. But then is this a burden on business? As a business owner, I obviously don't want any extra burdens on business. We did a study earlier in this year with a company called BPS World. BPS World is a global recruiter. They're at the very sharp end of the skills crisis. They recruit for things like IT and engineering, where there's a real problem in getting the right people. We asked Agile companies, those who already introduced Agile working, we asked them what the impact was. Most of them said that the productivity increase of introducing Agile working was between 10 and 20%. They also found that it was much easier to recruit people, and it made life much easier for them all round. They also found people didn't leave as often because they were more wedded to the company, more engaged with the company. There were also bigger studies done in China. There was one with a company called Citrip. They had 20,000 employees. They sent half of them home to remote work. It was done to try and reduce overhead costs. The other half stayed working as we normally know it in the office, and they tracked them over 2 years. At the end of the 2 years, they looked at what the impact was, and again, they found a 13% productivity increase and a 50% drop in resignations. So there's a huge productivity reason for working like this. The issue about people leaving work, as an employer, I already have people working for me who left agencies and other places because they wouldn't even allow them to work one day from home. Now, that is a huge issue in a skills crisis we've got at the moment, where it's really difficult to get good people. So the person I've employed, she brought in £1 million contracts to her agency, but they wouldn't let her work from home one day a week. And as there are more and more companies like mine who are going to recruit people in this way and let them work where they need to work, obviously I'm in the front queue as far as the skills crisis is concerned, so I'm very happy about that. So you then have to look at why businesses aren't doing this. That's the main reason. The main reason people have said to me, business owners, of why they don't allow people to work from home is the importance of informal communication, the water cooler moment. I think informal communication is incredibly important. That's why we get together 1 or 2 days a week. Those 1 or 2 days a week, we compress all our water cooler moments into 1 or 2 days. We find out when Mark and Jenny got up to at the party. We do share baked goods, and we gossip, and it is social, and we do have lunch, and we do all those things, and it's fun. But I come away from it, again, astonished that anyone can really work from an office. It is so full of distractions. The second thing is presenteeism. The need to be present. You have to be present in the office. But presenteeism is a very strange concept in today's world. How many people actually judge Amazon as a less credible retailer because they don't have a shop? When you buy insurance, do you go online or do you expect to go and see an insurance broker in a nice shiny office? Presenteeism is going. The other big issue is that most companies, myself included, even though we're tiny, we're a global company, which means that at any one time, even if I work, I need to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to make sure that I'm always present when someone might need me. So we're not present anyway. We really are not present. It's really important that we understand that people are productive at different times of the day. If you see me first thing, you'll see that I talk really slowly, and my brain's not working. I'm more productive later in the day. If we're having to accept people's time clocks around the world, why not accept that they're actually productive at different times of the day as well? It's a really important issue. It makes a massive difference, as you can see. These are the reasons why productivity increases so good. Overall, most companies are now at least beginning to think about this. There are issues, no doubt about them. This doesn't suit everyone or all companies or all sectors. I'm not sure I'd want to be operated on remotely. And obviously in hospitality and things. It also doesn't suit all people. What I'm suggesting is that you give people an option. And as I said, you still need to come together, but people should have an option at least. You know, why judge people by how long they're sat at the desk? Some people do get cabin fever at home, and that's why there's so many good work hubs and places now where you can go to and be near home. You don't have to commute 2 hours. You can just go down the road and get to know your local business community. That's really important. Training can be more difficult, but we took on a 22-year-old work experience person. And yes, we sat with her in an office a couple of days a week. She came away from the experience and said it was actually no different to university, that you sit together, you train, you get to know the job, and you go away and work out whether you can do it by yourself. And it does create really independent employees who are very much focused on the end goal. I think, as I said, most companies are beginning to think about this. I think a lot of them don't understand it. A lot of them have said things to me like, yes, we're a fully agile company. We allow people to go home early on a Friday. That's not an agile employer. And that's one of the reasons we wrote the Agile Revolution with BPS World, the global recruiter. There is a huge issue, I think, at the public sector policy level. I was at City Hall in October last month, and there's a big board there which is saying all the policy initiatives around pollution. They didn't mention agile working, but can you imagine the impact if everyone just worked 1 or 2 days from home a week? It'd be massive impact on pollution. One of the people who contributed to the book was a guy called Leon Benjamin. Leon Benjamin is a change management consultant. He's worked with people like Virgin and BT and Microsoft, some really big players. He was sat down with Transport for London, and he said, you've got all these problems, you're throwing these billions of pounds at it, wouldn't it be better just to encourage some agile working? He was met with a complete blank stare as if he was mad. So this is not even being thought about. People are not even thinking that this could solve so many of society's problems. Even if it doesn't work for everyone, it could work for a lot of people. Of course, if the public sector will probably get on board with this at the point that it gains critical momentum and a lot of people are doing it. If they're late to the party, doesn't really matter. They won't go out of business. But I'm saying if business is late to the party, you will go out of business. The revolution will be bloody. Thank you.